Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome to another edition of E-Heroes. Today's E-Hero is Manny Wolfe, and I tell you what, he's on fire. You know, lately he's just been pumping out video after video after video, and if you go on Facebook, you'll see his live streams. It's just awesome. So we're going to talk about content creation. We're going to talk about, and maybe we'll talk about his book, but we're going to talk about a lot of stuff that I think you as an entrepreneur right now listening need to know. So welcome, Manny, and thanks for being here.
Yeah, Rob, thanks, man. I'm glad to be here. And, you know, we had a lot of false starts trying to get this to happen. So, but that's the nature of things. Anyway, I'm glad to be here, man.
But, you know, I see you every day putting out another video, putting out, you know, content. And, you know, we talked about this before getting on, and the whole thing is getting into that daily habit. But
yeah, absolutely.
How do you do that? I mean, because there's a lot of entrepreneurs that they'll do it 1 or 2, 3 times, and you know, and then they'll say, "Oh, I got to take a cheat day," or "I got to do this," and then next thing you know, no habit, the habit's gone.
Yeah. So it was a shift in the way I thought about it. It's ironic because I started out in the space coaching public speakers. I know that I have the ability to communicate an idea well. I know that I have all the things that I teach: good body language, storytelling, vocal tonality. And yet I let myself get just kind of waylaid by these little mental gremlins, you know, to the point where I just wasn't doing anything and I got sick of it. So for me, it started out, I like the idea that, that you only need discipline for like the first 30 days or so. And after that, it becomes habit. I want to give your listeners something more tangible than, well, Rob, I just buckled down and did it. You know what I mean? I feel like we hear so much of that, and that just it doesn't have the teeth that somebody's going to need in the guidance in order to be able to do this. So here's the thing that I think really shifted it for me. I looked at how noisy the space is. And that can daunt you at first. That can be daunting, right? But then I kind of really looked deeper and I went, okay, but here's the thing. There are, I gotta say, less than 1% of the people in my orbit who are consistent. Now the space is noisy, but it's because people keep jumping in and falling out, jumping in and falling out, jumping in and falling out, right? And I guess what happened for me was I sort of realized that consistency is more important than quality. And for me, that was a permission slip. As this guy who has this ego about training speakers to be so good they make the room cry, I didn't realize I was holding myself to a really unclear but hard to hit standard. So when I just started saying, you know what, just go. This is exactly what you teach your people. One of the things I would teach my speakers is I want you to do a 5-minute live stream each day extemporaneously, off the top of your head. There were 2 reasons for that. One is, as a speaker, you need to know what 5-minute increments of speaking feel like. Right? You got to get used to that so that when the countdown timer or the guy in the back holds up the 5-minute card, you don't just totally freak out.
Been there, done that.
I know, it's so nerve-wracking. But the other thing is you need to learn how to speak off the top of your head. Yeah, and you're not going to be good at something like that at first. It's just not the kind of thing that we can do without practice. And so when I put those together, I was like, well, consistency breeds trust. And the only way to be consistent is to be consistent. Like there's no cheat there. There's no shortcut. And I gave myself permission to suck for a little while.
Yeah, for me, it was like the first 100 videos.
Yeah, no, seriously. But the idea is, and this is a visual that's borrowed from a friend of mine. Each piece of your content is one brush stroke in your masterpiece, which I call your brand, your personal brand. It's not the end all be all. It's just one brush stroke. You know, I studied art in college, and I thought of people like Monet specifically, and how he just did these brush strokes and create these masterpieces. And that's how I kind of look at it now. You don't need to see me be perfect every time. You need to get a sense over time of my personality and my expertise. So there's a lot more psychology since then that I've really sort of unpacked about that, right? But that's how I started. That's how I got over that inertia of like the ego.
Mm-hmm. How many live, and that's the beauty of doing these, you know, because when I would do live videos, I would always mess up, and people are like, well, aren't you afraid? I'm like, no, because it's raw, it's real, it's who I am. I'm gonna mess up, and makes me more human. But how many live streams did you have to do before you started to see the numbers rise? More people were starting to
good question
to look at you.
So it's hard to say how many. I'm gonna say maybe about 20 consistently. So a long time ago, I was in one of those tight spots that we get into in our businesses. I needed clients, bottom line. I reached out to a friend of mine who was far more successful than I was. And I basically just said, you know, how can I get more clients, man? He said, I want you to commit to 30 live streams. I said, so 30 live streams asking for clients? He goes, nope, just 30 live streams. Mm-hmm. Just show up each day for 30 days. And, you know, I don't know what it is about me, but when people say things like that to me, I'm like, okay, I'll do it. I get all like, you know, I'm going to do this for us. Where I get that shit. But anyway, so I did 30 live streams in a row. Now, guys and girls listening, I ran out of ideas so profoundly that 2 or 3 of those live streams are just me playing my bass. This is absolutely true. You can go back on my profile and see this. There are like 2 or 3 of them from 3 years ago where I'm just like shredding on the bass, and that's it. You know? And of course, as you would expect, those got like crazy traction and views and everybody, you know, tons of engagement. Yeah. The point is, before that 30 days was up, I had landed 2 new clients.
Wow.
Right. Frankly, I usually charge for this. I'm just going to give this away because it was given to me. If you need to grab some clients in the next month and you can show up 30 days as yourself, showing your personality and then your expertise. And I'd weight it more towards personality, by the way, because again, of some psychology that we can go into if you want, but you're probably going to grab a couple of clients. You're probably going to grab a couple new, or in the case of one of my guys, one of my champions, his first clients ever. Mm-hmm. That was such a good feeling.
You know, when I started live streaming, I would take the news that Facebook was showing. You know, they used to have the, you know, what's happening with Apple and all these other different tech companies. And so I would take 3 subjects every single day and comment on them.
Yeah.
And I did that for a whole year. And then Facebook says, oh, we're not doing this anymore. And I'm like, well, crap, what do I do for content?
Yeah.
And I'm like, so I just started taking a lot of the questions that people would ask me and turn them into live segments. And I'd prefer live video because, you know, I can open up. I don't have to rehearse. I don't have to prepare. And it forces my brain to get the answer out quick and concise, and I don't waste time.
I really love that, especially when you said it forces my brain to. I do all of my recorded videos off the cuff now. Mm-hmm. And there's another reason for that too. I'm making content easy. Yeah. For one thing, I don't have to plot and strategize very much, right? I just wing it. But the other thing is, it's a very valuable skill to be able to articulate yourself clearly off the cuff. You know, like that's going to serve you as an entrepreneur, as a husband, as a wife, as a boyfriend, girlfriend, brother, sister. Every part of your life is going to become better. And so it's like I'm not going to say ninja or Jedi anymore. So it's like I'm doing this like samurai move on you where you think you're getting better at creating your brand, but in fact, you're turning into a better human.
Well, for me, it was just, you know, it was sharpening my sarcastic wit and You know, it was, people were like, Rob, I think you need to tone it down a little bit. Do you want clients or not? Like, go away, you know? So, but you know, so you're putting a lot of stuff on Facebook. Do you cross promote it to other channels?
I do. I drop it on YouTube. I drop it on LinkedIn. We drop stuff on Instagram too, but Instagram to me is it's hieroglyphic in nature.
Yeah.
In the sense that I just don't understand it and I don't pretend to. Ultimately, what I'll do, because now this is what I train people in. Mm-hmm. I train people in developing your personal brand. And what that means to me is having strategic, deliberate sort of influence over what people say, think, and feel about you when you're not there. Mm-hmm. To me, that's the soul of a brand, by the way, guys. If you're paying attention and you felt the ambiguity underneath the word brand, that's because logo designers, website designers, people like myself, we all talk in terms of brand. Right. And so it's a big, open, nebulous word.
On a previous podcast, I was saying that, you know, each one of us as an individual become our own brand, you know, maybe not as popular as Nike or Apple, but people recognize who we are, and that brand transcends, you know, that image, that logo that you're used to looking at. Your face becomes your brand, and then it's that authority that people are looking for, and they trust you.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. And so now's a good time to unpack that psychology I referred to a couple of times earlier. When it comes to purchase decisions, and I am unabashedly on social media for business. You know, I don't feel like as entrepreneurs we should hem and haw, apologize, or split hairs about that. I'm here for business. Doesn't mean I can't be your friend, doesn't mean anything else. It means I'm here for business. This is free real estate to over 2 billion people, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, but with that said, if you want to understand long-term sustainability as a coach in particular, you have to understand that we decide in our gut what we're going to do with you. And it happens in many cases, way before we ever buy from you. Mm-hmm. If we buy from you, there's a predictable process. We take this good feeling about you we have in our gut and we force it through a filter of justification. That's what people need to understand. That's why I say when you do your content, weight it to your personality more and your expertise less. Because you're not unique in what you offer. Nobody is. Mm-hmm. But you're unique in who you are. And I'm never going to pay to work with somebody I don't have a good vibe with.
Right.
I mean, we never have to. And so why would we?
Marketers are always teaching, you know, entrepreneurs about their perfect avatar, who we want to look for in a customer. But the customer already has that avatar in their head of who they want to deal with.
Yeah.
You know, as a vendor.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great way to flip that thing around. One of the beauties of having a content strategy based approach to building your business and your brand is that you don't have to start with your perfect avatar.
Right.
Which for many people is going to be good news because they're frankly too lazy to do the work. You know, I'm not lying, Rob. You know, people skip over the hard stuff and jump to the sexy stuff, right? And there's nothing sexy about sitting in your office, cranking out an ideal avatar and doing the research. You could do the research through your content, right? You don't have to go old school. Right. You don't have to go Ogilvy advertising agency with it. You can do the research through your content. Mm-hmm. Put the content out, put it out steadily, test different audiences, and people will tell you what they like. People will give you the feedback. You'll get all that stuff that we talk about while also getting yourself better at video and social media. Most of the people that I work with, as I'm sure you already know who they're going after, but a lot of times it's beginning, you know, like I'll get people who are transitioning from a corporate job or a 9-to-5 of some sort. They're like, you know, I really want to coach and help and serve, and I've got this message inside of me. I have no idea where to start. It's really great for them because I can just say, here, look, just create content and follow this strategy for how to distribute it. And all of that stuff will come to you. So that's really cool. Totally lost my train of thought after that. We're going to stop there. We're going to pretend this part never happened.
See, that's the beauty of all this. We make mistakes.
Yeah, that's right.
But every entrepreneur, I believe, has ADD. I think that's just inherent. Because we can jump from one subject to the next, and we know what we're talking about, but sometimes our customers don't. And I think sometimes it shows in the posts we make, in the videos we make, and sometimes we can be our own worst enemy because we put out stuff that contradicts what we just put out.
Yeah. Well, we can be our own worst enemy in so many ways. One of the biggest things for me that freed me to become more prolific was really just starting to have faith in the idea that other people weren't judging me the way I was judging myself.
Right.
They do judge you, of course. And on a fun side note, I think you'll enjoy this.
Yeah, I won't judge you on this podcast, but I'll wait till we're done.
Right, yeah, as you should. That's protocol. There seems to be this unwritten rule that when we're starting to produce a lot of content and get following and grow, that we should treat the haters and the trolls in this magnanimous way, right? Where we sort of just say, if we respond at all, it's with some benign little comment. Well, I've always entertained the idea of, what if every now and then we just George Carlin one of the haters, right? And I think this really speaks to the truth of your personality. What if we did that? What if we Lenny Bruced or Richard Pryored a hater? And so the other day, I had this guy on one of my posts, and he wasn't even very good at being a troll, frankly. If you're watching, you know who you are. You got shut down, buddy. Yes, you did. You got drugged through the mud, you punk. Anyway, so I just thought to myself, let's see what happens, And so instead of being polite, I just kind of said, I really held back. I just kind of said, hey, buddy, there's so many other places on the internet you can spend your time. I've looked over your profile. You're clearly successful. Maybe you're just, and I just sort of let him have it. And we went about 4 rounds before he disappeared. So I don't know if I don't know what lesson there is in there, but I knew that you, because of your own viciousness with prank caller or with robocallers and stuff,
robocallers,
I knew you'd appreciate that. So I'm actually going to start a new movement with a friend of mine, Matt Mandel, and it's going to be a program that we teach. It's called Harness the Haters.
That'll be great.
Yeah. We're going to make millions off the back of those trolls. But so I did want to.
And the funny thing is that, a lot of entrepreneurs, when they get into this game of creating content, they look at what a troll does.
Yeah.
And that one content can throw them off their game and they stop doing it.
Yeah. The thing I want to say on that, and this, I actually really feel strongly about this. I have a client of mine. She was not doing this work with me because she's too afraid of the haters, right? Mm-hmm. She's got a message, and I know that we can sort of, in our space, everybody has a dream and a vision and a message, and it's easy to forget how important those are to the individuals who have them, because everybody has them. But if you think about it, the bulk of the population of the world doesn't. Mm-hmm. We're in a small bubble of people who really want to make something happen. And so I try to cherish that in people. And one of the things I've noticed really affects people's content creation is we will let the smallest things keep us from our biggest dreams. Mm-hmm. This person has a book she's written. She has a deep wealth of knowledge in her field. She could really make changes in people's lives. She could really know that feeling of her life being about serving others at a high level. She could have that thing we're all talking about. Turns out she used to be the town stunner. She used to be like the looker, and she's older now. Happens to us all, right? And she tried one live stream one time, and a guy jumped on and harshed her about her appearance. And she's like, that's it. She won't get back on the horse. And so I'm not saying this to wag a finger at her, but to illustrate for everybody that our mind does this to us. That is such a small thing to stop you from your fucking life's dream. And yet we do it without realizing it all the time.
You know, if you're that much of a, I don't want to use the word pansy, but if you don't like people's comments, then shield yourself from them. You can make these videos, you can do the live stream, but have somebody else looking at the comments, someone else responding, someone else shielding you, so you don't get offended. Yeah.
And the thing that I always want to be a champion for and a voice for is, you know, you got to really take time to consider, like, how bad do you want this thing that is your dream, right? I can tell you without any hyperbole, I know what it's like to go from decades of a brutal slog through life, just miserable, to living my dream, like my real, honest to God dream, where I'm helping people. As somebody who was never listened to in his household, I'm listened to and trusted by people. And if I was perfectly candid, I'd say that's a big part of why I do what I do. Because I always knew I had something to offer, but I grew up in a household where that wasn't valued and taken seriously. We mocked each other. And so everybody learned how to not express their dreams, or how to do it in this vague, circuitous way where nothing could come back on you. And as a result, I've got 3 siblings who are all brilliant, who are doing fuck all with their lives. I mean, seriously, it's heartbreaking, right? And so for me, a big part of it is like, people actually take my advice and listen to me. And I'm going to tell you, the little kid in me feels really vindicated by that.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I had to go through that process of becoming aware not to let those little things keep me from my biggest dreams. And it's uncomfortable. But what I would say to everybody, including that client of mine, is it's so worth it.
Yeah.
It's so worth it.
I started this consulting gig, you know, probably when I was in my late 20s.
Yeah.
Now I'm 50 years old, and people are coming to me and they feel like I'm the authority, but crap, it took me 20 some years to get here.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I know.
You know, and it's like, oh, Rob, you're an overnight success. Yeah. It only took me 20 years. Whatever.
Yeah. Nights on what planet?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did want to share with people how I got to what I'm doing, you know, because I started out in the space. I actually started out as a voice coach. I created this podcast that I thought would change the world, you know, like we all hope and think. And as soon as I launched it, people started asking me if I could teach them how to sound good on the microphone. There's nothing to do with my podcast at all, right? But I was totally green, and I was like, yes, of course I can. And, you know, I've been trained as an actor and trained as a singer and trained as a public speaker. So I was like, yeah, sure, of course. And I'll never forget the first guy. I didn't even know about PayPal. I was so green. I had him drive to the Bank of America in his town. Yeah, that's right. And deposit, wait for it, $397 into my bank account for a month's worth of coaching. And I remember looking at my wife and going, that's almost $100 an hour. You know? Now, some of you watching this are rolling your eyes and going, I'd kill for $100 an hour. Let me tell you, when you make $100 an hour, you realize it doesn't get you that far. So I digress, right? I got so sort of hooked on the elixir that I put together a free training for people. And this was back when it was still ethical to go into groups and say, hey, I'm so glad to be here. I'd like to offer all of you a free call. You know, and I'd offer people a free call, and about 1 out of 20 would say yes. And I'd get another client, and I'm training people on voice. Pretty soon it became public speakers. Well, that was at the time when I really sort of like I guess I'm really an entrepreneur. and so my desire has always been to help people, but I never really clarified it more than that. And so when I declared that I was in fact an entrepreneur, my desire became, what's the most powerful thing I can help entrepreneurs with? The thing that makes everything else easier. And at that time, I thought it was public speaking, because for an hour of your time, there are very few things you can do that have the potential leverage of that, right? So I go into public speaking, and I go into training people on speaking, and it's going well, although I'd say the field is crowded with a lot of charlatans and a lot of people who think that because they spoke, they can teach speaking. But neither here nor there. As I'm teaching people, I'm sort of always aware that my main thing I want to do is help you be better at your business. And for years, I told myself that was because speaking is so leveraged. The whole time that I was doing that, people were asking me, how do I get booked to speak? Thank you for the coaching on how to speak. How do I get gigs? And I kept saying, I'll make a program. I promise you I'll get to it. But, I mean, it was about 3 years before I finally got to it. So that was the first iteration, was I finally made a program. And in that program, I just broke down all the old school stuff, network, shake hands, go to your local Rotary clubs, business associations, search Google for speaking opportunities plus location, all the grunt work. Put it together, ran a beta course, got a bunch of people in it. I mean, there's interest, right? And I organized it so that every 3 days they'd get another thing. And every week we'd have a call. So they get 2 things and then a call, 2 things and then a call, 2 things and then a call. Even still, by the second week, the third call, we had a kickoff call and then 2 calls. So by the third call, people were overwhelmed. And they had only had like 5 things to incorporate. And you could just see it. And so I had this moment where I was like, would it help you guys if somebody was to do this work for you? And everybody was like, oh my God. On that call, I grabbed like the first 5 clients for my done for you speaking gig service. Right? And we're moving to how I got into branding from being a voice coach. So that was this thing that I was obsessed with. I was like, I got to figure out how to do this for people. I could just take the course I just built them and have my team do it. And so we put it together and we got a working version 1.0 and things were going pretty good. And then we refined and got a version 2.0 and 3.0. And we got it down pretty cost effective. We were hitting 50 gigs a month for each client. So we're applying to 50 gigs a month for each person. I got up to like 5,000 gigs applied to. And I noticed, I was like, okay, so like about 7 of these 50 people that I have as clients are getting 90% or more of the gigs. What gives? I mean, I expected there'd be a distribution, right? But I at least thought it would be more like 80-20. But it's like a tiny little clump are getting all the invitations to speak. So I went through and I looked at each person. I looked at their social media. And I realized those 7 or 6 even people, it was clear on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, these are professionals. That's where the idea for the branding was born.
When I came out with my book, Share, which was my first print book, it was, people said, it's the easiest social media book ever. And it gave them 27 ways to boost their social media experience, gave them examples, what to do, how to do it.
Yeah.
And it was like $20. They would buy the book and then hire me and spend $1,000 a month to have it done for them.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'll take your money, but here I'm giving you a way to do it, saving yourself. They didn't want to save the money. They didn't want to have the hassle.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's as it should be in a sense though, because we do want to not spread ourselves too thin. And so now what I've evolved into, speaking of that, is I realized that the branding was important. And then I got into it more and I started reaching out to colleagues in the speaking industry. And I'm finding out that except for keynote speakers, which they're not my people. They're a breed apart, I mean, you could be a keynote speaker and command $10,000 a talk and still be one talk away from missing a mortgage payment. It's a weird life. You know, you can get $20,000 a talk and be considered at the top of your game and be one mortgage payment, one speaking gig away from missing your mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
So they're a different breed. And what I found for everybody else is that like the sizzle reel doesn't even matter as much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The one sheet is almost, I mean, I'm not gonna say it's irrelevant, but if you've got great social media, you don't need a one sheet or a sizzle reel. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. And I kind of said, that was when I had an epiphany that the thing I had been after all along, what can I help people with, entrepreneurs, that is the most foundational thing, that if you do this, everything else becomes easier. And it's not content, it's what content accomplishes, which is building trust. Mm-hmm. And I often talk about the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson example. If you're a fit pro and you want to do a VIP day for $5,000 a person and get 20 people in it, first of all, you won't. Second of all, you're going to have to hustle so hard just to get a few people. Mm-hmm. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson could do it with one tweet. Why? Because he has massive, massive brand trust. Mm-hmm. And you don't. Bottom line. Right? Yeah. And so like, that was like, I burned my whole old business to the ground and said, this is what I'm doing now. Like I changed everything when I had that epiphany. I want to help entrepreneurs learn how, coaches really, learn how to build trust strategically with a large and growing audience. Mm-hmm. So that your copy isn't as important, your funnel isn't as important, your enrollment call doesn't matter as much. All of that shit just goes smoothly if they trust you.
Right.
All of those pieces that we get so focused on really are there to mitigate a lack of trust in the beginning,
Yeah, they say you're always one funnel away from your $1 million.
Yeah.
I hate funnels. They can just stick them.
Yeah.
But, and the thing is, sometimes I'll break a funnel and I'll see what a customer does. And if they would jump the hoops to get to me, that's the customer I want.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think all of that stuff is reflective of the idea that Maslow said, where, to the man with a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. If your hammer is selling people on a cult of funnel building, well then sure, every problem can be solved with being one funnel away.
Yeah. So how do the listeners get a hold of you? Where do they go?
You can come find me, just on my business page, Manny Wolfe. But I don't know how to share it here. I've got a link for a truly free copy of my book. It is not free plus shipping, guys. It's not that. It will cost you your email address, but it's a PDF download. And you can read the story of everything I went through to become, that everything I had to overcome, so that you can know that you're not alone. Mm-hmm. And you can get a real sense, I hope, of what we have to be prepared to do in our journey, So it's the memoir of my life. And I tried to write it like the classic pre-Tony Robbins personal improvement books, the ones that had parable and metaphor and allegory and mm-hmm. weren't, sort of ABC 1, 2, 3. Mm-hmm. So you get to know the story of my life, for better or for worse. But you also get, hopefully, some very useful kind of mindset training in there as well.
And how do they get that? You have a link?
You want me to give you the link?
Yeah, because I'll share it below, and the listeners can, if you throw it out there, they'll hear it. But if they go to the eHeroes website, they'll see the link in the description.
Okay, cool. Let's see where we can find it. Boy, this is ill-prepared of me. I apologize to you and the audience here. Okay, I think we've got it. Here's what I'm gonna do, Rob. I'm gonna send it over to you in Messenger. We're just making tech our bitch right now.
There you go.
So I put it to you in Messenger, and you now have it.
Okay. And what I'll do is Anybody who wants it, and you're listening to this, send me a message, or go back to the eHeroes website, which is e/heroes.anspachmedia.com, and you can get it. It'll be actually on the description, on the graphic that's here, but you probably won't see that if it's on the podcast, but you will get it, or you send me a chat on Facebook. We'll make sure you get it. So thank you for being a guest, Manny. And for all those that are listening, make sure you visit Manny on his Facebook page, and grab a copy once I put the link in here. Hey,
totally free.
Totally free. There you go.
If somehow you can't get it from Rob, ask me. I'm happy to give it to you.
And that's what makes Manny an e-hero, because he's always on fire every day. So adios, and we'll see you on the next episode.